So we are now going on to chapter 3, which is Karam Yoga or Yoga of Action. We've already talked a little about this in chapter 2. Now, chapter 3 is devoted to this to a large extent. What we need to understand is that the entire Gita has been narrated in the style of the Upanishads. Now, what was the beauty of the Upanishads? The Upanishads, all 108 of the Upanishads were recited as a dialogue between the student teacher. So the student would ask a question, the teacher would answer the question, the student would ask for clarification and got answers, and so on and so forth. That is exactly the same style of the Bhagwad Gita. Here it is Arjun with a problem. He's vented his problem. Krishna is giving his solutions. And in between, Arjun is repeatedly asking questions for reclarification of something that he has not understood. The reason why this style became very popular and very effective was because the teacher was not giving a dictate to the student. The teacher was not telling the student what to do, as we've seen in the so far up to chapter 2, that in spite of the fact that Arjun keeps asking Krishna, what do I do? Krishna does not give him a solution. He gives him a theory. He gives him an understanding. He gives him ideas. But the path that he needs to follow, or the path he is going to follow, is his own. That is exactly what the Upanishads did too. They gave students asked to clarify their brain, the teacher answered, but what the thought process or how the student evolved was totally up to the student. The teacher, the Vedantic way of teaching is not to give you 100% saying, oh, this is it and this is the way it is. What the Vedantic way of teaching is, it gives you the theory, it gives you the principles, it gives you all the logic. But what you formulate out of it, what ideas you form from it, is your own. Nobody is dictating it to you. One of the main reasons for this was because at the time the Mahabharat was written, at the time the Gita was written, as we've discussed earlier, there was a lot of ritualism that was happening. We have talked about the Kanda Karma, the ritualistic practices, and Krishna has also done a comparison concluding that the path of evolution was through Karam Yoga or Jnana Yoga or Yoga of knowledge. Krishna has advised Arjun that his duty was to work without worrying about consequences. But that was not the reason for inaction. He concluded the last chapter by explaining that the way to attain the state of equanimity of mind or equilibrium of mind was through either Buddhi Yoga, which was knowledge, and also through Karam Yoga. You could achieve the yoga of knowledge through Karam Yoga. Now, Arjun is completely confused about the two. He's not very sure as to what path should he adopt, not just for self development, but immediately what is the path he should adopt. He has become confused about it. But then we also know that Arjun was showing signs of confusion from the start of the Gita itself, where he was spouting one philosophy, then spouting a contradictory philosophy. Basically, Arjun's confusion right up to the end of chapter 2 has not been resolved. He has still not been able to determine what is the path, what is the right path, what he should follow. Somewhere down the line, Arjun is also hoping that maybe Krishna will tell him, okay, this is the path, go down it, so that he doesn't have to take accountability for his own actions and he can just pass it on, saying that, oh, I was asked to do this. Arjun asked Krishna that you seem to advocate the path of knowledge and understanding while pushing me to do action at the same time. And Krishna explains to him that the two paths, knowledge and action, which is, he explained both these paths to Arjun. In this chapter, now he talks about, Krishna further talks about the performance, why performance of duties is obligatory for everyone. Krishna comprehensively explains how it is the duty of each and every member of society to carry out their functions and responsibilities according to their stage in life, according to the rules and regulations of society. If you remember, at that time, society was divided into caste systems, which was based on the ability of a person and their mental state of being, whether they were more inclined to study, so they were a Brahmin. If they were more inclined to business, they were in the Vaishya category. If they were more inclined to doing work, then they were in the Shudra category. If they were warrior like, they were the Kshatriya category. So depending on your state of mind, your bent of mind, there were duties that you had to perform, and that is how society carried on. He explained, he's going to further, as we go into the verses, you'll start understanding that Krishna further explains that these duties have to be performed and why there is a benefit of performing the duties. And what is the harm that comes out of not doing your duties? And what kind of actions lead to bondage and what kind of actions lead to salvation. Krishna is explaining all of this in chapter 3. We have touched briefly on parts of it in chapter 2. As discussed earlier, chapter 2 was the essence of the Vedantic philosophy. The essence of the Gita was there. So everything has been touched briefly. Now each chapter as we go along will expound more and more on each one of these. Basically, this chapter is called Karam Yoga, where Krishna goes on to explain why Karam, why action, what are the benefits of Karam, what are the benefits of action, how they should be done and why they should be done. And it is only through right action that one can find freedom. Right action from great men sets a standard for ordinary men to follow. We have a beautiful example. We have so many examples in front of us. Look at Warren Buffett. Right actions, amazing if you could follow him to achieve that level of success. Krishna even goes to the extent of telling Arjun that, look, even I am doing all the right actions, though I have no desire, no need, no necessity. Yet I am setting the right example by doing the right actions. So it starts with, in the first two stanzas itself, Arjun asks Krishna, if you think knowledge is superior to action, why are you asking me to engage in this terrible action? And why are you confusing me with these words? You're saying one thing, asking me to do another thing. Arjun, by asking these questions, shows his lack of understanding of what was taught in the previous chapter. Maybe that is why repetition was so important, that in the first repeat he did not understand it. Arjun is not able to identify with the cause, which is the battle of good against evil. He is still aligning himself with himself. He's still thinking of himself as a I, me, myself. He is not thinking about the greater good. He is not thinking about that, if I do this action, it is for the benefit of mankind in general. He's battling with the thought process of, he still hasn't completely understood the duality, so he is battling with the thought process of relative, kinsmen, teachers, elders. Why should he battle over them? The complete concept of real and unreal seems to have gone over his head completely. Arjun is also confused about whether work for reward is less excellent than work without attachment and desires, and believes that if Krishna is of the view that knowledge without action is better than work or action, then why should he do an action? Now, all these in itself are explaining that Arjun has not understood a word of what Krishna said in the last session. So Arjun requests Krishna, please tell me about the two paths again, knowledge or action. Which one should I follow? Again, he's asking Krishna, which means he's again moving accountability to Krishna, asking to be told a path that he should follow rather than use his own head, use his own thought process, and follow a path that seems right to him. From stanza 3, Krishna explains once again there are two paths, the path of knowledge and the path of action. Both are complementary to each other. It is not that if I take the path of knowledge, I don't take the path of action. It's not a either or situation. It's a and situation. You can take the path of knowledge and then do action as prescribed by the path of knowledge, and that is the best way to be. Action, which is where the framework of that action or the foundation of that action has come from knowledge. So take knowledge, take action, mate them together, you're sorted in life. Depending on the situation, Krishna further explains, depending on the situation, your bent of mind, you would choose either one of the paths or both, and it's all correct. There are people who are thinkers, and there are people who are action driven. Those who are thinkers find the concept of duality, the real and the unreal. They find it very easy to understand that duality. They come to terms with it very early in life and decide to come to a path of singularity, concentrating on the Brahmin inside them or the Atma inside them, and trying to strive to reach or merge with the super consciousness. For these kind of people, but these people are very few and far in between. There are not too many people who are like that. For these people, the path of knowledge works and works completely. But then there are people who believe that work is worship, for whom action is everything. They're completely action oriented. Those people may not have a very clear understanding of duality. They may not even understand that duality exists. But when they start understanding the true essence of Karam Yoga or Yoga of Action and start working without expectations of results, because we do understand the very fundamental principle of Karam Yoga is to work for the pleasure of work without any desire for results at the end of it. These people will uplift themselves, they will evolve, and they will get moksha over a period of time. Because temperamentally, these two categories are so opposite. Thinking, action, they are very, very opposite in nature. There is no specific technique for spiritual development. There would be times when you would work on knowledge, there would be times when you work on action, there'll be times when you work on both, but there is no defined path. Krishna, in not so many words, is explaining to Arjun that there is no prescribed path which is the correct path. And this is also the fundamental principle of Hinduism to a large extent, the Vedantic way of life to 100%. There is no prescribed path. What is correct for you is correct for you. It may not be correct for somebody else, but the flexibility that we have is that we have the freedom to do what is correct from our point of view. And that is what Krishna is trying to explain to Arjun, that whatever you choose, whether you choose the path of knowledge, you choose the path of action, you choose the path of both, knowledge coupled with action, whichever way you go, it is correct. He explains further that the twofold path of self-development, which is either path of knowledge for the introverts whose natural tendency is to explore, introspect, go within themselves. And the path of action for the extroverts who have a natural bias for work, for action, for the outside world. Krishna further explains that those who are endowed with the sixfold virtues, I'll just get into the sixfold virtues as they are described. For these people who desire to get moksha, the path of knowledge is what suits them the best. The sixfold virtues as given by our scriptures are sama. Sama is peace of mind through eradication of vasanas. We have discussed vasanas before. Then you have Dhamma, which is control of the sense organs. We have again discussed this, that it is through the sense organs that a stimuli is given to the mind, which then functions on a reaction action stage. So, control of the sense organs. Uparati. Uparati is renunciation or stopping of all action, which is in a way sannyas. Titiksha. Titiksha is forbearance or endurance of the duality. We have again understood. You have to, in every aspect of life, you have to learn to tolerate, endure, and get over the duality. Shraddha, which is faith. Shraddha is literally faith in God, faith in the universe, faith in that higher supreme power. Very importantly, also faith in yourself, faith in the scriptures, faith in the saying of a teacher, faith in the sayings of a guru, faith in the truth as it appeals to you, and samadhana, which is concentration of mind or balance of the mind. These are the six virtues of the path of knowledge, and for people who are seekers of the path of knowledge, these are the six virtues that they would want to incorporate. In chapter 2, from verses 11 to 38, Krishna did describe the Jnana Yoga or the path of knowledge. And from verses 40 to 53, he described the Karam Yoga. Because he described them one after the other, he created a confusion in Arjun's mind. Ved Vyasa, through these confusions, is also showing how easy it is to get confused about a concept, how easy it is to get confused about a, a path or a particular way that we should follow. What he's trying to also explain is that there is no path, no way. There are multiple paths given by us, given by our scriptures. The beauty is that whichever one that appeals to us, it resonates with us, is the path we are supposed to follow. If my resonance is thinking and introspection, I will follow the path of knowledge. If my resonance is action, I want to be on the move all the time, I want to do all the time, can't sit still, then my path is the path of karam or path of action. If I do not follow what is resonating inside me, if I do not allow myself to understand my own resonance, I will come to a state of confusion and come to a standstill, which is exactly what happened to Arjun. Arjun was not thinking. Arjun was not, in spite of having been taught all these, none of these scriptures are new for Arjun. He had been taught all these. He had amazing teachers like Dronacharya, Kripacharya, Bhishma Pitama. These guys were stalwarts. They were so well. If we remember, Bhishma Pitama had been educated by sage Vashisht in all the scriptures. He had the kind of knowledge that was incredible. He was one of the teachers for both the Pandava and Kaurava kids. If, in spite of having all of that, in spite of being told so much by Krishna on the battlefield, there is still a point of confusion, then the problem does not lie in the teaching. The problem lies in Arjun's personal ability to discern. More than anything, I Personally, I feel that Arjun's problem lay with the fact that he did not want to take an action for fear of repercussions of those actions. If he had taken an action, fought the war, and he lost, his name would have gone down in the annals of history as the loser. He would not have been Arjun, the great warrior. If he fought, he won the battle. He would have again, in the annals of history, his name would have gone down as a person who killed his kinsmen for the sake of a kingdom, for the sake of a throne. So, either which way, Arjun is very scared of the repercussions, which is what is actually creating the confusion in our heads. For all of us, sit back and think for a minute. There are times when we are very confused about what to do or what not to do. The problem is not that we don't have the knowledge. We have the knowledge. We have everything that it takes to come to a reasonable decision. The reason we are not taking that decision is for fear of repercussions of the action we take. It is fear that brings us to a standstill. It is fear that creates that confusion, which is exactly what had happened in Arjun's case. It wasn't lack of knowledge. Arjun did have all that knowledge. But also, as shown in the Gita, as shown in the Upanishads, that the best way to get out of confusion is to ask questions. The more questions you ask, no matter how silly they may sound in your brain, but the more questions you ask, the more answers you get, the more knowledge you get, which makes it, which putting all that knowledge together, then you can have an informed decision or a studied decision on what to do or what path to take. Also, the beauty of all of this is that once you've asked the questions, you've got the answers, the computation in your mind then doesn't take too long. It splits seconds like this, and you are coming up with conclusions and answers. Whether you want to follow them or not, that is a different matter altogether. Krishna further explains that to consider the path of action and the path of knowledge as competitive is to understand neither of them. They are complementary. They are not, again, they are not a either or situation. Selfless activity enables the mind to get rid of desires and expectations, and it is then easier to come to a point of singularity from here, which again, if you look at this statement, selfless activity enables the mind to get rid of desires and expectations to come to a point of singularity. When you get rid of desires and expectations, which means you fully understand Karam Yoga. To understand Karam Yoga, there has to be yoga of knowledge. So the two work in tandem. They don't work against each other, they work with each other. Then from stanza 4 onward, Krishna is repeating, he is elaborating, he is giving more theories to support the theory of yoga of action, yoga of knowledge. Krishna says that the natural law is there is an action, every action has a reaction. I don't remember which scientist. Who was it? Newton, I think. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction, which came up in our sciences so much later. It was already given by the Vedas so long back, and they say that this is New Age knowledge. It isn't. It is age old wisdom that has been passed down. We've just forgotten about it. We've forgotten to react to it, to understand it. We've actually just forgotten the knowledge, period. He says, Krishna says, the result of an action is the source of bondage, preventing a man from his union with the supreme consciousness. So beautifully said. When we do an action has a reaction. Depending on that reaction, it creates a bondage inside us because we get tied to the result of that action. We get tied to the reaction of that action. I've done an action, I've gone out, I have gotten a job. I've done the job with an expectation of a salary. If the salary does not meet my expectations, then I'm working harder, which means I'm trying for higher salary. I'm looking for a higher income to buy a house, to buy a car, to buy something. So action, result of the action leads to bondage, and when we get stuck in that bondage is when we move away from attaining peace of mind. We move away from attaining self-satisfaction, being complete and whole within us, and we prevent ourselves from getting that peace that we are so. Any human being you ask today, what are you looking for? I'm looking for peace and happiness. Sorry, but that's absolute bullshit, because if they were looking for peace and happiness, then whether they had a S series Mercedes or a whatever series Beamer would not make a difference. Just because my neighbor has something, or so and so has something, I have a 1 carat diamond, I want a 4 carat diamond, none of these would make a difference if you were really striving for peace and happiness, because none of these things give peace and happiness. So Krishna really is explaining this point, that when you get stuck to the results of an action, you become a slave to that action. You cannot achieve moksha, you cannot achieve peace of mind, you cannot achieve happiness so long as you are tied to the result of that action. He says it is not renunciation that works, but renunciation of desires, renunciation of selfish desires. That is what is called nishkaram, a state where one is not affected by work or bothered about the results. Action that is nishkaram is what we should be striving towards. Action, as is generally understood, is the outcome of want and desire. Actionless does not mean becoming idle or abandoning all actions. One can while a lot of time away doing nothing, or so called doing nothing. So I could just sit down doing nothing, looking at the sky, looking at the clouds, just idling my time away. But am I actually doing nothing? No, I'm not, because my mind is completely active. I am building dreams, I'm weaving a lot of stories and fantasies in my head. So, actionless is a very difficult state to be in. Desire makes, even when you're completely actionless, desire will promote action, even if it's in the form of thoughts or intent or ideas or whatever, or desires, just basic desires. Desires, sorry, generate thoughts at a mental level. These are then expressed in the outer world to become actions. Thought is the real action. I have said this time and time again in the varied classes and sessions that I've conducted. Thought is the most powerful form of energy. There is no energy more powerful than thought. Everything that we do starts with thought. Now take a thought, couple it up with intent, and you have the most powerful form of energy that can ever happen. But if one is free from thoughts, wishes, likes, dislikes, has knowledge of the self, that person can be said to be actionless. It is virtually impossible. A lot of this is also teachings. If we can attain even 10% of what has been taught, we will achieve that peace of mind. I have tried very, very hard from personal experience, because I know I get asked this question, that how is it possible? Not possible to be completely thoughtless, to be completely with zero wishes, zero desires, zero wants, zero needs. Very difficult. I have not so far achieved it. If somebody else has achieved it, please tell me how to do it. Because reading all of this, understanding all of this, it is something that you strive to get to all the time. So, yes, I have managed to reach a stage where material is of zero interest to me. I don't care about the kind of clothes I wear. I don't care about jewelry. I don't care about money unless it's just money to put food on the table. Like it's a necessity, but it's not a desire for that in itself. It's like a means to an end, not the product. But I haven't been able to eradicate the desires or wishes for my children's success, for their happiness, for their well being, or that my dogs stay healthy, they don't suffer, or that Raman stays healthy. So it is very difficult to be thought free, but over time, with baby steps, you can minimize the amount of desires that you have. One thing I can say for 100%, that desires on a material plane can completely be eradicated, and that is the first step towards peace of mind. A couple of days back, we'd gone out for lunch, and every woman at that lunch was wearing diamond bracelets, diamond rings, diamond earrings, amazing shoes, bags, I mean, name it, what have yous. And there was this one me wearing a simple shirt, a pair of track pants, and a set of walking shoes, all mismatched. And honestly, as third party observer, I was sitting outside and observing myself. I saw every one of those women look at me up and down like that, very judgmental about the fact at how I looked. Didn't make a difference to me. And that is when I actually came to the realization that yes, desires on a material plane, I have been able to control to a very large extent. Not control, actually eradicate. Control means, as we've discussed earlier, control means that it's still there, but I'm putting a control on it outwardly. Fact of the matter is, this wasn't an outwardly thing. There's actually just no desire. It doesn't make a damn difference anymore. So, baby steps, we can get there. Change the thought to performing an action to the best of one's ability as opposed to thinking about or desiring the result. And this is something very easy to do when I'm doing something. I'm only doing it for the pleasure of doing what I'm doing. There is zero thought of results. There is zero thought of what I'm going to attain from it. There are zero thoughts of what are the benefits I'm going to get out of it. Nothing. None of those are even there as a part of my psyche. Baby steps, step by step, just change. If you truly want to become a karam yogi and want to get into the thought process of doing an action without being bothered about the result, take baby steps, and it is achievable. Not 100%, but it's definitely achievable. When one has reached that state of actionlessness, there is no necessity or desire for action as a means to an end. You don't get up and start doing something because you are desiring something at the end of it. That is the beauty. That sheer restlessness, that hubbard dubbard. I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to achieve this, I have to achieve that. All that goes, there becomes a kind of stillness, a sense of peace within you. So then, whatever action you're doing is very studied. You're trying to do it to the best of your ability, and you're doing it with a calmness and equanimity of mind because you don't care what the result is, and it brings a peace of mind that is unbelievable. This is It is not, what he is explaining so beautifully is, it's not renunciation of action, it is not a running away from life. That does not lead to perfection, peace of mind, or moksha. It is through selfless dedicated action that purification of the mind is achieved. And when the mind is purified, then knowledge, a mating with the super consciousness, reaching that state of absolute bliss is a possibility. Krishna further explains, no one can remain, very rightfully said, no one can remain without activity for even a second. Even if the body, as I've explained earlier, even if the body is still, the mind is not. It is through sattvic actions that you can achieve liberation and stillness. We have talked about the actions sattvic, rajasic, tamasic in the previous chapters. I think the previous session or the one before that, we have discussed them in detail. It is through sattvic action that a man can try and achieve liberation and stillness. Rajasic and tamasic actions bind you to the world because these are actions that are prompted up with desires, result oriented, goal oriented. So long as we are alive, we will stay under the influence of the gunas. These mental tendencies or the characteristics that we have, we cannot escape from them, but we can reduce the Rajasic and Tamasic to increase the Sattvic Guna. And we're doing all of this not for the world, not for somebody outside, not for even that supreme being up there, not for the universe. We are basically doing it to find that peace of mind within us. Every day I hear of people who have anxiety attacks, panic attacks, stress, depression, high blood pressure, heart disease, name it, what have you. All these are a result of that absolute desire for something, that absolute want for something that makes you so restless and makes you go out to push yourself beyond your limits, to get somewhere very fast. It is to prevent all of that one tries to achieve that sattvic way of life, to try and reduce the rajasic and tamasic, to bring that stillness. Believe you me, once you've achieved that stillness, it's a beautiful place to be. While life remains, action is inevitable. Thinking is an act, living is an act. All these acts have caused many effects. So every act is going to have an effect, every action is going to have a reaction. To be free from desire, from the illusion of personal interest, is true renunciation, not the physical removal of activity. So Krishna has answered Arjun so beautifully. Inaction does not, or actionlessness does not mean no activity. All of life is an activity. Taking a breath is an activity, but it is how and why we do those activities, which is what causes the absence of activity. We have to do activity. It is not a choice. While you're living, activity is something you have to do. But when you remove the desires from it, when you remove the goals from it, when you remove the tension from it, when you remove the anxiety from it, it virtually becomes an inactivity because it's not effort anymore. It is you're flowing with the activity. He says that work ceases for a man who is liberated. This is exactly what he means, that it doesn't become work anymore. It is only work when we are striving to achieve something, when we are trying so desperately to get to a goal. Remove all of that, remove the goal, remove the results, remove everything, then it's just the pleasure of the work that you're doing that matters. It liberates you, it frees you, brings you to a state of peace of mind, which makes you work harder, makes you work better, does not lead to inactivity, because then you are working for the sheer pleasure of the work that you're doing. There are no other stresses that are involved with this. This is what Krishna was explaining. This is what freedom from bondage is all about. A person who understands this, understands is released from duality. Duality is action, reaction, and that person then starts moving towards singularity or oneness or the Advait Vedanta that we have been talking of all along. Krishna further explains there are 5 organs of action, not to be confused by the 5 senses, which are your eye, nose, ears, mouth, etc. These are the 5 organs of action. The karam indriyas, which are organs of speech, hands, feet, genitals, and the anus. These are subtle elements. Organ of speech is born of the ether element, hands of the air, feet of fire, genitals of water, anus of earth. Despite restraining these organs, if one sits revolving his mind in his mind the thoughts regarding the objects of these sense organs in order to give an impression that he is meditating or praying to God or doing something, this kind of a person is a hypocrite. He is deluding himself into being something that he is not. Krishna explains true renunciation is not just the control of the organs. We've discussed this in chapter 2 also. True renunciation is not just control of the organs or absentation of physical movement. It is the control of the mind. It is the control of organs of perception. It is the absolute absence of longing for activity. An active mind and an actionless body do not indicate the life of abstinence or sannyas. We may control our activities, but if we do not restrain the desires that push us into those activities, we have failed to understand the true meaning of the word restraint. Restraint, and this has again been repeated, I think this has been repeated twice or thrice already, that it is not abstaining from doing something. It is actually eradicating the absolute desire for a result, which is what is called restraint, which is what we are trying to achieve, and which is what is renunciation. You can have, and for that matter, I think all the sages that we have, all the sadhus that we have that went into the forest to pray and renounce and do all kinds of stuff, did they achieve it in 100%? No, they didn't, because they were still suffering from rage, they were still suffering from passion, they were still suffering from ego. What was it? It was ego that made Kripacharya, Dronacharya. It was ego that brought them into the royal household to become teachers to the royal families. Point of matter, it is not just abstinence, it is actually a removal of desires. Very easy to say, very, very hard to do. But once again, coming back to this, if we can achieve even a portion of it in some aspect of our life. So we have a complete life. We have a life that is very material, very everything. If we can start eradicating those desires, even from bits and pieces of that life we lead, we will achieve peace of mind. Step by step, bit by bit. All of it together, if anybody is going to sit and think, oh, I can do this, you're making a mistake. You can't. Little by little, baby steps. Krishna says, the science of right action or the art of right living is the mind gets inputs from the 5 senses. Now, here we are talking of the 5 senses: the eyes, nose, ears, skin, all the 5 senses. The mind perceives through these sense organs. The sense organs send a message or a stimuli, and that is what creates an action or a reaction. If whatever stimuli the sense organs are sending to us, if the mind, we can train our mind to not react to that stimuli, that is when we will become a proper karam yogi. That is when the desires will go. And as the desires reduce, the vasanas will go away. When the vasanas go away, we come to peace. He is talking of an inside out concept. He says, don't allow the mind to be influenced by the input of desires from the sense organs, but do what is needed to be done. So, if I am getting a stimuli from outside, I don't react to that stimuli. I just do what I'm supposed to be doing to the best of my ability. If my neighbor has a Mercedes, my sense organs see it. They send the data to my mind. A beautiful car, luxurious, what upholstery, what music system, what sound system, blah, blah, blah. Sends all this data to the mind. My mind accepts that data and does not react to it, does not attach an emotion to it. All it does is accepts the data, smiles at the neighbor and says, congratulations, I'm so happy for you. And that's it. It's over. It's done. That is what we want to try and achieve. That is how we will control our mind. On the other hand, when the sense organs send that data to my mind, and the instant reaction is, oh, I wish I had one too. I wish I had a mug like this. I'll buy it in a blue color. I'll buy it bigger. I'll buy a better series, whatever. There's a reaction to the sensory data that has been sent to the mind and then applied to day life. So now you're going to work with the desire of owning a Mercedes. This is what Krishna is trying to explain, that this is what is renunciation. When the stimuli is sent to the mind processes the data, does not apply any emotion to that data, processes it, stores it, puts it away, and carries on with an action irrespective of what stimuli has been sent in. That is true renunciation. That is true detachment. Krishna has explained this again and again and again. He explains about the performance. He explains about performing one's duty. He says that even action, why action is so important. Even the bare maintenance of your body for reasons of health, so that you don't fall. I'm not talking of longevity. I'm just talking of basic health, for reasons of basic health will not be possible if you become inactive. If you're inactive, you're not going to have the right nutrients, you're not going to exercise, you're not going to do what is right for your body. You are going to fall sick and you're going to suffer. He says allotted action is one's duty. As laid down by the scriptures, it is important to do those actions. It is our duty to do those actions. Today, if you have the Prime Minister of the country, it is his duty to govern the country. It is his duty to take all the actions necessary to make the country a better country, to make it more prosperous for the benefit of everybody. Those actions are necessary. It is our duty to do the correct action. As a mother, it is my duty to do what is correct by my child. As a grandmother, it is your duty to do what is correct by your grandchildren. So he says, Krishna is explaining again when Arjun had said, why no action? He is explaining why it is so important to do those actions which are our duty, which is our responsibility. If we don't do them, it's like the body. He compares it to the body. The body will wither away without the right actions, which is the right food, the right nutrients, the right exercise. Similarly, the world around us will wither away if none of us does our allocated actions in the right way. These are unavoidable. You have to do them to just exist. He further says that all work should be done in a spirit of sacrifice, like a yagna. which is a yagna is basically an unselfish action done with a pure motive for the greater good. Coming back to the example of a prime minister, good prime minister is somebody who will work like, whose actions will be like that of a yagna, where he is working for the greater good. He is working for the good of the country. He is working for the good of the citizens, not for personal good. He is working with with a sense of self-sacrifice. This is really important. Krishna says, and this is the beauty of what he said that yagna or self sacrifice, when the universe was created by Prajapati, which is the Brahma, when he first created the universe, he also created simultaneously the spirit of yagna, the spirit of self dedicated actions, which are seen everywhere. The sun shining, giving life giving force, the moon shining, giving gravity, again, another form of life giving force, the flowing of the rivers, the bountiful nature of earth. All these activities are showing the spirit of sacrifice without a selfish motive. So the very concept of creation of the universe was done with the spirit of yagna. What a beautiful explanation that has been given. Hats off to Ved Vyasa for this. But just think about it. Look around us. The air flows totally without a desire, a wish. It's just doing that action. Self sacrifice, just doing that action. The earth is sustaining life on earth. The sun is giving that life source energy. The rivers are flowing. Not one of them is doing anything with a gain in mind or a personal interest or a vested interest. This is the spirit of yagna, which was already incorporated into the tapestry of the universe when it was created. What beautiful thought process. If the universe can do it, we already have by example that it is being done. Maybe we should learn from that by example and follow it through. Krishna further goes on to explain, there is no achievement that is impossible for man so long as he works with the sense of yagna, with the sense of self sacrifice, with no attachment. If he can do this, there is nothing he cannot achieve. He can move mountains then. Further, he goes on to say, he says, cherish the devas, and those devas will cherish you. Interdependence. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. Cooperative movement. When we work together, we work for each other's benefit. Everybody stands to gain. Here, right from verses 11 to 14, what Krishna is saying is that in our ancients, everything was by the gods and the demigods. So there was a Surya god, there was a Saraswati river, there was a Ganges river, Vayu, the god of wind. Every force of nature was ascribed to a god or a demigod. They were functioning with a sense of yagna, with a sense of self sacrifice, without taking anything out of it. They were just doing what they were supposed to have been doing. They were performing these actions. Now, they did their part in it. What was our role in it? Our role was to express our appreciation of what was being done to us, give our gratitude. Here he is saying, give our gratitude to the devas, which are wind, fire, earth, water, whatever, name it. It's a beautiful concept. He said, by worshipping the devas in a spirit of sacrifice, by being grateful to all the presiding deities of the beautiful nature around us, you recognize the natural phenomena, you recognize the creation that has been done. There is a beauty what he was talking was the actual yagna, to do a yagna where you are giving, those ahutis for the Surya Dev and the fire god and the sun god and the this god and the that god. Now, there were a lot of reasons why yagnas were actually majorly propagated by the Vedic way of life. There was so much of yagnas that happened. Firstly, yagnas, all the samagri, that was all the stuff you put inside that fire, purified the air. It cleaned the air out. It was good for you. It was good for the nature. It was good for the air. It was purifying in itself. Secondly, when we pray to something, we are less likely to destroy it. This, as a concept, was an amazing concept. When we deified everything, so we prayed to the sun as a god, we prayed to the moon as a goddess, we prayed to the river as goddesses, we prayed to the grain as Annapurna, a goddess. When we deified things, we prayed to them, we said thank you, we appreciated what they were doing to us. We had a feeling of gratitude, an attitude of gratitude. When you have that gratitude, you can only have that gratitude when you recognize what has been done for you. When you recognize what has been done for you, you have respect for what is happening. It is because of that respect nature was so bountiful. When science came in, with the advent of science, with the advent of so-called knowledge, we started saying, oh, there is no sun god, there is no moon god, there is no this god, there is no that god, the rivers are not goddesses. And because we did not treat them with that respect, we forgot to be grateful to them, we started destroying the very nature around us. So there is a lot to be said about what our ancients said and did about the yagnas, about the thank you to the devas, whether you want to call them devas, the sun god, whatever you want to call them, but the appreciation of the selfless service that was done to us. It is a selfless service that the sun is shining on us and giving us this amazing life giving energy. It is selfless service with this air that we breathe. Because we've forgotten to be grateful to them, because we have forgotten to appreciate this bounty that was created around us, we have set out systematically to destroy it. Our ancients didn't destroy it. We are destroying it because we have forgotten to be grateful for what was being given to us. And this is what he's saying in the Gita. Appreciate. With the very fabric of the universe has been created with this sense of selfless service into it. It's embedded into it. Appreciate that. Be grateful for it. Say your thank you in the form of a yagna. Say whether you do it in the form of a yagna or not, but be thankful, be grateful, and try and absorb some of that sense of yagna inside you to work the way nature works. That is how if we actually followed all of this, maybe we could still save the earth from the destruction it is headed towards. In the Vedic view, every human being is meant for action as a participant of this creation. We are all meant to work together. We are all meant to work in harmony. Every human being's destination is supposed to be the same, which is basically moksha, to get peace, to merge with the Creator. One achieves this by doing the Karma Yoga path. When we, as an act of sacrifice, dedicated to the Atma, to the universal consciousness, to the super consciousness, what again beautifully explained is it's interdependent. All these devas, all these gods, the like the sun god, the moon god, the river goddesses, whatever, they are providing something and they're dependent on us to give gratitude for their survival. We are codependent on each other. We've forgotten that. All we've learned to do over time is take, take, take. We have forgotten to give back. And that is the beauty of what they're trying to say. This is why the knowledge in the Gita is timeless. It is applicable at every step of the way. In today's day and age, this is so applicable. We are taking from nature, we are taking from the gods, we are taking from the demigods. We've forgotten to give back. We have forgotten to return back to them. That returning can only happen when we have a sense of gratitude, when we have a sense of recognition of what is being done for us. And guys, I am going to stop this now. We've already been at it for 45 minutes. So we are going to put a pause on it now, and we will start from here next time. We will go part of this passage again because we haven't completed these verses completely.